Thank you for joining this Samba webinar. I'm going to walk you through how to maximize lead gen ROI, and this is specifically tailored towards life science companies. All right, so my goal for today is that you guys will leave this webinar knowing what the smartest next step is that you should take for your particular company and circumstance to help you maximize your ROI, so decrease your cost per lead. What I'm going to do is talk a little bit about company-specific considerations that should go into your decision of what's the best channel and course of action for you. I'll walk through different options for lead gen channels and talk about the strengths of each and the circumstances where they make the most sense. I'll summarize that in a nice comparison matrix to help you pick what will work for your company. Share a few notes on when is the right time to invest in a full-scale website update. For our budget-conscious audience members, talk about how to most effectively spend your first or your next 10,000 in marketing. Then talk about how we put all of the different channels together into multi-channel inbound campaigns, what you do once you get a lead in the door in order to nurture them. And then for anyone who may not be familiar with Samba Scientific, I'll talk a little bit about how we can help you with maximizing your lead gen ROI and share a few success stories. So picking the right channel for you is really going to depend a lot on who your customers are, whether they're already actively searching for a solution like yours, whether they're ready to buy right now or in the educational phase, of course, the budget that you have to spend on marketing and advertising, the existing assets you have to leverage, so the current state of your website or any content like white papers, webinars, and then your timeline for when you're hoping to see results. So I'm going to walk you through how to choose the right lead gen channel for you, channel by channel. I want to start with search engine optimization because one of the most common requests we get from people is to help us improve SEO on their website. Why is that important? Because everybody goes to Google to answer the questions that they have or your favorite search engine. And so we want to make sure that when people are searching for a solution like yours, your website comes up. But what some people don't realize about SEO is that it's not a one and done. You don't SEO optimize your website once and then it's good to go forever. It's an ongoing process and it takes a fair amount of startup investment. So in order for a website to have good SEO, there needs to be a lot of content. It needs to be keyword optimized. You need to make sure that your website is technically set up correctly so it's mobile friendly, pages load quickly, etc. So SEO can be a little bit of a slow win process. So if you look at the graph here on the right, this is actual data for one of our clients. What you'll see is it does follow the pattern that you'd like, and ultimately we see, huge increases in organic search ranking, but it does happen a little bit slowly. So it takes a few months for the search engines to catch up with new content and content changes, and then boom, it really snowballs from there. So we generally think of SEO as something that you should be doing all the time in the background, and you're going to see the results soonest if your website's already okay. So it's easier to take a site from the second page to the first page than it is to get it ranking if it's not showing up at all or if it's on, page 40. The cost for SEO is really going to vary depending on the current state of your website. General maintenance is going to be about $3,000 a month. And again, you want to invest in that continually to make sure that your website stays healthy and is constantly refreshed because search engines are always looking for new content. And those costs may be higher upfront depending on whether your website needs substantial technical fixes or whether you need to create a lot of content out the gate. The related topic that I will not touch on today because we have a webinar specifically devoted to it later this quarter is GEO, generative engine optimization. So how do you get your site to show up when people do AI-based searches? The fundamentals are similar, but there are some differences, and we'll come back to that later this quarter. So make sure you're subscribed to our list and stay tuned. So search engine optimization can be slow, can be a bit of an investment. How do we get you more leads at a lower cost in the meantime? Our first channel that we turn to for that is Google Ads. So basically, you can leverage Google Ads to show up at the top of search results while you're building SEO. Google Ads are one of the best tools in terms of ROI for high intent audiences. So that's people that are already searching for a solution like yours. We really want to target keyword volume around 10 a month or more. So if there are fewer than 10 searches per month related to your target keywords, Google Ads is probably not going to be a good tool. There's really quick, easy ways to check for that using Google's Keyword Planner. If you don't know how to do that, no problem. Reach out to us. I'd be happy to do a quick check for you and discuss whether or not Google Ads might be the right tool for your product or services. A few things to consider with Google Ads is that you do need to have a strong landing page. So people are going to see your ad, they're going to click on it, and that's going to take them to a page. You're going to pay at the point when they click. And so we want to make sure when they get to that page that you're getting some value out of that, that they're converting. So we want to make sure that your landing page has multiple conversion opportunities, some that are more top of funnel, like downloading an asset, some that are more bottom of funnel, like directly scheduling a meeting with a sales team. In terms of investment for Google Ads, it's going to take you about $3,000 to $10,000 to launch Google Ads, and that range is really depending on whether or not you already have a strong landing page. And then the maintenance of that is going to be a minimum of about $3,000 a month going forward. That's the cost for managing the ads and also the cost for the ad spend. You do want to make sure that you have somebody to manage your ads that is both an expert in Google Ads and also an expert in science and in your specific scientific audience. Because what we see often is that when ads are managed by non-scientific experts, you end up with a lot of erroneous searches. For instance, if you're selling a library prep solution for PCR, you don't want people ending up on your landing page because they've searched what is PCR or how to do PCR. Those are obviously students, not, people in a position to make a buying decision for a library prep kit. All right, so what do you do if you do not have a high intent audience that is already searching for your solution? So for instance, maybe you have a technology that is so new, it's really creating a new category. And so it's unlikely that people are searching for that specific solution. In that case, we typically turn to LinkedIn ads. LinkedIn ads, of course, are great for a professional audience. We all know that professionals are active on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is really great for educational content. So when people go on LinkedIn, they're not going there to shop, right? You go to Google if you're trying to shop. When you're going to LinkedIn, you're looking to connect or you're looking to learn. And so we want to make sure that when we run LinkedIn ads, we're leveraging content that provides that opportunity. So things like white papers, ebooks, webinars are great for advertising on LinkedIn. A few things that are great about LinkedIn is we can get really precise in terms of our targeting. So we can target by job title, industry, company size, keywords, groups. So we can get really precise. And there are a lot of different options for the types of ads that you can run on LinkedIn, including things like direct downloads. So we don't always need a landing page to run a LinkedIn ads campaign. So LinkedIn is really great for anything that's innovative or in a new category itself. The cost is going to be similar to Google Ads. The ROI tends to be a tiny bit higher for LinkedIn than for Google. So that's why we use Google as that first line. All right, next ad category is third-party ads. So these are ad placements in association with scientific news sites, journals, or other sorts of trade organizations. So conferences, associations, etc. We really think about third-party ads as a tool primarily for brand awareness. We don't see as much clicks or conversions with third-party ads as we do with Google or LinkedIn ads, but they're really great for getting in front of your audience, especially if there is some sort of publication that your niche audience targets really, really heavily. We generally recommend leveraging text ads in newsletters as much as possible versus banner ads on website if your goal is lead generation. The banner ads on website, again, great for awareness, but we tend to see better conversion rates when we run text ads in newsletters. There are some vendors out there that will sort of decrease the ROI by having a lower barrier of entry to leads. So for instance, technology networks, if somebody clicks an ad in their newsletter, they give you the contact information for that person who clicked. So then you get a lead just from a click as opposed to having to have them actually fill out a form. There are also channels that run lead generation campaigns. For instance, Genome Web, you can pass them a white paper, they'll promote it in their newsletters, and then they'll pass you those leads. The cost for third-party ads can really vary. Placements are generally around 500 at the very lowest, and then they can go up a lot from there, depending on how long you run the banner ads, depending on the channel. So for instance, the more pharma-focused channels like Stat News and Endpoints tend to be a little bit more expensive. All right. In case anybody's just now joining, I will just say quickly again, if you guys have questions, feel free to use that Q&A tool that you see on the bottom of your screen, and we'll address those at the end. The next channel I want to touch on is webinars. I feel a little bit funny about leaving webinars so late in the talk because it is absolutely one of our favorite tools. Webinars are awesome for lead generation. They get you really high quality leads at a fairly low cost per lead. To get the most out of a webinar, though, you really need to have a good speaker. And so if there's a key opinion leader or a customer that you've been working with, if they have new data to share, especially if they've recently published that data, asking that person to give a webinar is a really great way to generate high quality leads. Webinars don't work as well when you're just asking someone on your internal team to talk about your offering. People don't want to register for webinars to get a sales pitch. They want to register for webinars so that they can learn something. Webinars are really great for promoting new things too, like product launches. We like to tie them into conferences. So if you can promote a webinar at a conference and then have it afterwards and sort of take advantage of that momentum coming out of the conference, that works really well. It's really just a great way for there to be some third-party validation that your technology works and provides value. Now, if you would like to run a webinar, but you can't possibly think of a speaker, maybe your customers are in pharma and they tend to not want to share what they're doing with you. There are other opportunities that we can leverage. For instance, you could put together a panel of KOLs in your field just to talk about a hot topic. So say you're in the epigenetic space, maybe you organize a panel talking about, the biggest channel or the biggest challenge today in epigenetic research. And then people that are in that space are going to show up to learn. You could do a short little sales pitch at the end, or if nothing else, then they're getting awareness of your brand through that. So if you have a good speaker, webinars are actually the first thing we should do right out the gate. If not, we should think about getting a speaker to do them in the long run or leveraging a panel. Okay, trade shows are probably the thing that are the most common and that everybody in the room has probably done them before. Trade shows are really great for brand awareness, especially if you're going to invest in a giant island and a bunch of add-ons. They're not as great for short-term high-intent leads. Nonetheless, they can be worth the investment, especially if you can have a talk, particularly where you have a third-party speaker at the conference that can help drive traffic to your booth. So somebody gives a talk and then your sales team is at your booth to help answer questions about the technology after the fact. Trade shows are also great for raising awareness about a new product, especially if it's one of those products that's sort of a new category in the field. So then that's an exciting innovation that's going to drive traffic to the booth. Trade shows also work a little bit better for instruments than for services. People are more inclined to stop and play with a box than they are to stop and read about a list of services on your booth backdrop. Budgets, as you know, can vary widely. I'd say the mean is somewhere between $10,000 and $50,000. Obviously, they can go up hugely from there, particularly if we're talking about AGBT. Okay, so quick decision matrix, putting it all together. SEO is great for long-term growth. It's not a quick fix. It requires a lot of content. Google Ads have the lowest cost per conversion, but you do have to have a high intent audience that's searching for your offering. And again, we can help you determine whether or not that's the case. LinkedIn ads are great for targeting a niche audience, but we want to make sure we have an educational angle, not sales. Webinars provide really high quality leads at a low cost, but you do need to have a speaker. And trade shows are good for awareness, but be prepared to make a large investment without necessarily a really clear way to track what your ROI is, since a lot of the benefit is brand awareness. Quick note on website overhauls, because one of the other things that the prospects ask us about most often is completely updating their website. When to update your website, though, is really going to depend on where it's at currently and what your short-term goals are. So if you're already getting a fair amount of traffic, and in this industry, I would say that's at least 300 views per month, but fewer than 10% of the people that land on your website are converting, then you definitely need to do some conversion optimization work. And you need to do that before you start driving additional traffic via ads. Also, of course, if your website has updated information or outdated information and you're about to start driving more traffic, then you're going to want to get that updated. We generally recommend following a two-tiered approach. So thinking about what can we do in terms of quick wins. So that's either going to be just conversion optimizing some existing pages that you have that are getting a lot of traffic or to which you're going to drive traffic, or creating landing pages specific for ads so that we can start generating leads. We can close those deals and we can be generating an ROI at the same time as we invest in a larger site overhaul, which you may ultimately need to do in order to up-level your brand, improve trust, and improve long-term SEO. So you got $10,000 to spend. How do you spend it tomorrow? If you have a great speaker, definitely do a webinar. If you don't have a speaker, but people are searching for your offering, you've got to get up on Google Ads. If neither of those is true and you have a pretty niche novel product, consider LinkedIn ads. If you thought about running ads, but it turns out the cost per click is really high, we usually shoot for a cost per click below $5. And so if you find that there's a lot of competition for the keywords you care about and the cost per click is $20 or more, then it might make more sense to go ahead and invest right away in SEO. If you can time a new launch with a trade show that's key for your audience, then invest in a trade show. And if you've already got good website traffic, but your website's not converting, that's when you really need to invest in those website tweaks. We've talked so far about individual channels and when to choose the right channel. But ultimately, you really want to be taking a multi-channel approach. So our strengths and where we win and what we recommend most often is bringing together multiple channels for content-based inbound campaigns. So in addition to the channels we already talked about, adding in social and email, which are not as great for new customer or new lead acquisition, but they're really great for retouching your existing audience and nurturing them. And so all of those channels pointing people towards some sort of content piece that's going to add value. So white papers, case studies, how-to guides, webinars, so that they can learn and begin to trust you while at the same time getting information about your products. And then ideally, we want to gate that content behind a form and capture those leads in a CRM like HubSpot so that we can get reporting and learn what's working in terms of lead generation, and that we can also begin to segment your leads according to what specific products or services they're interested in or what pain points are important to them. So once you've got leads, the next step is to nurture them. So right away, if we get somebody in the door, we want to share additional content with them that is going to continue to build that trust and that interest. Ultimately, we want to get to the point where you're getting so many leads, you're not immediately passing every lead to the sales team, but instead you're setting up a scoring system so that when they've generated enough interest, that's when you qualify them as a marketing qualified lead, pass them to sales for that quick close. So putting it all together, we want to educate people at the top of the funnel through channels where they already are. We want to drive them to your website and leverage gated educational content to inspire them to fill out a form, capture that lead. Then once they're in your CRM, we want to send them additional content that is going to provide reassurance and drive them towards an action that is actually going to lead to revenue. I lost my mouse. There we go. All right. So at Samba, we take a phased approach generally. We want to start with quick wins. So make sure you have an infrastructure set up for lead capture and that you have one or more channels that are driving traffic to that infrastructure. We want to make sure there's nothing technically wrong with your SEO that's causing your website to not be ranked at all. Begin an initial lead generation campaign and start driving that traffic. So at that point, your cost per lead is going to be fairly high because, again, we're going to be investing in things like ads while SEO builds slowly in the background. Phase 2, so we've started gathering some data. We're going to optimize your landing pages so that they have a higher conversion rate, optimize your ads and social for more interactions, add additional content to your website and update it so we continue to improve your SEO, build new content for new funnels, and then automate lead generation so that every time a new contact comes in, they're automatically getting hit with additional information. And then we reach this inflection point in phase 3 where basically we've got it figured out, we've got it on lock. We can rinse and repeat with regular new campaigns and new content, continue to monitor and optimize, get really into that lead segmentation and send more and more targeted information so we can move them down the funnel faster. And then once we figured out what works in terms of ads, just increase that ad spend, because more ad spend is going to lead to more high intent leads and good ROI. All right. In case you guys are not familiar with Samba Scientific, I just want to talk a little bit about what we can do to help you maximize your ROI today. We're a team of about 20 fully remote employees that cover the gamut of everything you could need from a marketing perspective. Across our team, we have a lot of scientific expertise. So all of our clients are paired with an account manager who has a PhD in life sciences. We have tons of experience both at the bench and in commercial development in the life science space. We work with companies from the very basic through to translational to more clinical. So everything from tools, preclinical research, services, and offerings through to early stage therapeutics. We've helped over 150 companies in this space. This slide is just a very small sample of some of those companies to give you an idea of who we typically work with. And now I want to share a few case studies so you can see what kind of results you can expect and how we've been able to help other life science companies that might be similar to you. So all of our webinars include custom promotional materials. So they're really focused on your brand. We advertise to our opted-in list. We handle all of the logistics, hosting, and moderation. And then at the end, we pass you the leads and the video that you can use as an evergreen asset. We can also advertise as well to drive additional registrants. I have 2 case studies here. You can see in one case, this first webinar, it had a short promotional window over the holidays, but we still got over 120 new contacts. And those contacts went on to become, some of them went on to become closed deals, resulting in over 600,000 in revenue. Our webinars are priced at 9,000, so very significant ROI. Another example here, this was a company with a diagnostic technology. Their webinar had 200 attendees, and less than 30 days later, their technology was licensed by Roche. So very significant movement there. In terms of ads, we help with everything from initial planning and setup, as well as determining what ad channel you should use, the creative, the management, the landing pages, creating content that we can use as bait for lead generation on those pages. And that's for all of the channels that I mentioned. So just 2 examples here. There's many more on our website. The first for LinkedIn, we were able to generate leads at $47 per lead. And another case here in Google, we actually jumped in and optimized some existing ads that were already running, and we were able to get them an over 800% increase in their conversion rate, which translated to an 85% decrease in cost per conversion. So huge ROI. In terms of SEO, we recently helped a website increase their new contacts by over 50% and increase their organic traffic by over 50%. So really significant increase in traffic to their website. We can also have some measurables in terms of improving their site health, improving their ranking. And the websites that we built are really designed to drive lead generation. So in this example, we built a new site for Broad Clinical Labs. Within 3 months of launching that, they had over 7,000 visitors. That led to about 120 leads. And those leads went on to close 9 new deals within the first 3 months. So built the website, organic traffic, leads generated, turning into deals in the short term. We work with you specifically to identify your goals and then to put together a plan that makes sense with your goals. So similar to the process I just described, figuring out what channel works for you, but way more in depth. We're going to dig into your website, dig into your existing content, and see what makes the most sense for your budget. We then do everything needed to execute on that, or we can work with your team if you have some capabilities in-house. And because we are scientists, we like to design marketing experiments and then continuously monitor that data to make sure we're improving over time. I can make these slides available after the fact so you guys can check out our design portfolio and sizzle reel to get a better idea of our work, but I will just do a really quick click through so you guys can see some of the beautiful things that our design and scientific team have created together. Just a little teaser. All right. Now I would be very happy to take any questions. If you guys could go ahead and drop them in a Q&A. Justin says, can you share example of your marketing experiments? Absolutely. So as I mentioned earlier, we like to leverage HubSpot as a CRM because that's going to allow us to get a lot of data. But even if we don't have that, there are other tools. And basically what we'll do is when we start working together, we're going to set some baseline metrics. So we're going to see what are our conversion rates today. If we're talking about ads, what are our cost per click and our click-through rates today? And then we're going to make a change, and then we're going to measure the impact that that change has. And sometimes we'll also test multiple variables at a time. So we can run A/B tests on different copy to see which copy leads to more conversions. A lot of that we do automatically and is built into some of the systems. So for instance, with Google, we use responsive search ads. So we're going to feed Google a bunch of headlines, a bunch of descriptions, and Google is going to feed them up at random and then learn which ones perform better based on the parameters that we define. There are also additional tools we can use for doing things like A/B testing your landing pages. So trying a different order of information on the page, trying different copy on the page to see what works better. We've several times started working with clients and they have no gated content. And so then we experiment with what happens if we start to gate some of the content that's already on their site. And we look at things like, okay, how many people were clicking versus converting previously? And then once you gate how many people are clicking versus converting, so that we can try and figure out what is that balance between losing some people who don't want to provide their information, but also capturing information from people who otherwise would have just looked at a gated asset and gone away. So just a few examples there. If you look at the case studies on our website, you can also see we love to run ads on different channels at the same time, see which ones we get the best ROI from, and then of course increase the budget where the ROI is best. You guys can certainly feel free to reach out to us after the fact as well. If you go to sambasci.com, you can fill out a contact us form or meet directly with one of our experts. Also, my email address is jenna@sambasci.com, so you can feel free to contact me directly if you want help with some of the things I talked about, like figuring out what channel is going to make the most sense for you. Thank you guys so much for coming, and have a great day.